So, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us live on Zoom today, where we welcome the fabulous Lindsay Hurst. Lindsay's the Chief Operating Officer of NCS, which is the global training provider for the amazing internationally renowned Dr. Joe Dispenza. But Lindsay's story is just incredible itself. She'll touch on that, hopefully, go into detail about it. What's even more amazing about it is that she's just become desensitized to it. She's been living this life for such a long time that she just thinks, well, it's just been normalised. But when you listen to the story, the journey, it's just absolutely incredible. So with that, I won't take up any more time, Lindsay, and I will just pop it directly over to you.
Wow. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the introduction. And for those of you that have met me, you know that I am a normal person applying tools and learnings that I get changes with in my life, and I get to see amazing changes in other people. Some people use the word miraculous. I would as well. And I guess it's not so much that I've been desensitized to it, but just that, like, we're creating a new normal. And I'm delighted to work for Dr. Joe Dispenza and help him manage and lead his global team of over 100 neurochange solutions consultants who are working diligently around the globe to make a difference in people's lives. And so I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about me. You know, Gerald was like, tell them your story. And I said, well, I haven't really got a story. So I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then I'm going to give you a short presentation of about 25 minutes. You're going to get to meet Dr. Joe Dispenza if you haven't seen him before. I've got 2 little videos I've embedded into the presentation for you. So I'm sort of going to let him do some of the work today. And then at the end, we're going to have a question and answer session. Now, I know that some of you might want to ask some private questions. So when we switch off the recordings, I'll take some questions afterwards as well. And you might ask me some questions that I might not want to answer publicly. So I'll ask if I can answer those when we're finished as well, if that's okay with you all. If I can get some thumbs up, that would be awesome. All right. Thank you. If you've got any questions as we're going along, if you want to pop them in the chat box, and Gerald, if you could help me with that and just give us a heads up if there's anything that I need to know. So a little bit about me first. Well, I really want to know what you all want to get out of today. So while I'm talking, if you want to pop a couple of words in the chat box, and then Gerald, if you can let me know when I've finished saying a little bit about me, and then I can tailor what I'm going to say to some of your comments. So I'm originally born and bred in England. You can probably tell by my accent that a little bit that I'm from the northeast of England. I'm currently there at the moment in not so sunny Sunderland, which is where I was born. I work and travel internationally, so I'm not in the UK very much at all. And I was just really lucky to happen to be here when lockdown began. I was actually in London, and it was a pretty eerie time on the 16th of March, when to be in London with it being so quiet was really something else. And I chose to follow my intuition and come back up to the northeast of England and be around my family to support them in whichever way that I can. So yeah, I was born here, and I decided to take a different path than formal education. I left school, what most people would consider quite young, at 16, because I had this big plan that, much to my mother's dismay, she saw me going to sixth form college, and she saw me, staying at that good Catholic school that she had me in, and then going on to university. But I had different plans. I wanted to, I had this thought process way back then where I thought, if I go to college and university, then the research I'd done was when I get to go and get a great job, they're going to say you haven't got enough experience. And if I just leave and go and get a lot of experience, and if I want to get on in the world, people are going to say, well, you haven't got the qualifications. So I thought, which back then was quite different thinking, maybe if I get a really great job and then study at night school, which was quite new back then too, then maybe I could accelerate my learning and get on quicker and do better and be more impactful in my life. So I took a route into the banking world, and I was there for 25 years. So I was very successful. I was promoted probably every 2 years on average. They call those kinds of people high potential individuals. You get put in a little box, and you know you're part of a group of people that they want to watch and maybe, you know, badge you for future promotions. And I did really well. So I got to travel, and I worked across the UK, and I actually lived in Scotland, in Glasgow, for a few years as well. And it was a great time. And so I got to a point in banking where I felt like it wasn't what I'd signed up to. You can imagine the change in banking over 25 years. And when it got to about 2000, and it was about the year 2000, I was actually in Glasgow at that time, and met some great people. I'd become really well known for building winning teams, taking underperforming teams and making them into something that was more than top performing. And because I believe in individuals, I believe in possibility, I believe that everyone has potential. And so when they would say this team's not performing, and if you can't fix it, we're going to break them up, or this person's not going to have a job, I'm like, let me take a look at this for you. And then really work with an individual to help them to develop themselves. So that was my roots. And where I got to was, it really, I have to be careful about what I say because I signed some NDAs. I didn't like the way it was going. I didn't like the conversations that I was having. Not all of them. There's some great people and they're still friends with me today. But I just felt the change in how it was being handled was too diverse from where I'd originally come into that particular corporate environment. And so I decided to set up my own company, and it was called Sarios Training and Consultancy. And I built it from nothing to a 6-figure turnover business, and ended up having clients in the UK and internationally. And I've always believed in self-development. You know, that seed of wanting to learn while I was working was still present. I'm always reading a book. I love having a stack of books to read that I haven't got to yet. I love improving my knowledge and capabilities. And so that's a theme for me. And I'd gone on and I went to learn things from people like Tony Robbins. I was part of that environment for a while, and he's got some really great solid models and concepts that he teaches. I got really interested more recently over the last 10 years in psychotherapy. And I had thought about going into this to be a psychotherapist, but I didn't fancy the idea of listening to people's problems all day. But I loved the tools and models, and I decided to take those into my company Sarios, and then follow the path of developmental transactional analysis, which is basically taking all of the models and concepts from psychotherapy and using them from a growth perspective, if I can say it, rather than a therapeutic perspective, although the models and tools are the same. And so I developed a course with my co-director, and we had a lot of success with that in the business world. And then I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza, which was actually in 2006. And I started to read his books, watch he was in some movies back then. And I got to meet him. I was helping a friend. I'd also trained up in NLP and became a master trainer in NLP. And one of my friends who worked with Tony Robbins as a trainer for some time had asked me to go and support him with his NLP event. And so I went along, and one of the guests we had was Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he showed this video of neurons firing together and wiring together. And I was in awe because I thought, wow, that's speeded up imagery of the brain actually pruning synaptic connections. That's a thought. It's a really hardwired thought that's actually pruning away, and that means that you can't think that thought anymore. That fascinated me. And then the reverse of that, or the converse of that, which is neurons that fire together, wire together, and you could see those little neurons just reaching out to each other and making that connection, and over time becoming stronger and stronger. So the idea of neuroplasticity, which was born probably just over a decade ago now, which now is science fact, that our brains are plastic, which prior to that we were told, you know, show me the boy 0 to 7 and I'll give you the man, and it's not true. So all of that led me to want to learn more about Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I ended up going to some of his events, reading more of his work, loving his work, and certain circumstances unfolded, and here I am helping him run his company. So that's a little bit about me. I'm happy to take more questions about that at the end, but I suppose it gives you a flavour of me and who I am in the world, and that what I really care about is human evolution. What I'm really interested in is human change. And so it's no mistake that I would be involved with someone that is interested in helping individuals to change from the inside out, and to be helping him with his mission, vision and purpose in the world, which is for Neurochange Solutions, is changing corporations or organizations from the inside out. And how we do that is we teach a program called Change Your Mind, Create New Results, with Gerald's been on and some of you have attended. And it's a program about personal change. And what I love about it is it takes neuroscience, some really basic concepts of neuroscience that help individuals to understand, hang on a minute, this is actually happening in my brain and body. And when I understand it, when I take that information, I can transform it into any transformation that I wish it to be in my life. So that's a little bit of me. It's a little bit about what I do, a little bit about my story. I hope it's enough to give you all a flavour of me. And what I'd love to do is share my slide deck with you. Now, what I'd like you to consider as we go through this short slide deck is that humans have between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and neuroscience tells us that 90% of them are the same. So if you think 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of your thoughts are the same as the day before, and if you believe your thoughts have something to do with your destiny, then your life's not going to change very much, right? And because you have the same thought, that leads to the same choice, and that same choice leads to the same behavior, and that same behavior creates the same experience. That same experience produces the same emotion. But the act of becoming conscious of how you feel is called metacognition. And metacognition is when you see yourself, when you're aware of yourself, when you become conscious of what you're thinking, how you're acting, what you're doing, or how you're feeling. And the more conscious you become of your unconscious states of mind and body, the less you're likely to go unconscious during your day and allow any thoughts to slip by your awareness unchecked. And that means you're starting to know yourself. And that really is the whole concept of meditation, means to know yourself. If you look at the different definitions of meditation, even if you just look at the dictionary, pure definition of it, it means to go inwards. It means to, get to know more about you. It means to pay attention. And so what I'm going to do today is we're going to be talking about how you can become more familiar with that process. And Dr. Joe has created 2 models and 4 tools that he teaches in this program. Now, he also teaches in the personal development world a program called his Progressive event, which is over a weekend. And then he has week-long retreats. So a lot of the content that we've got in the program that we teach is from the Progressive weekend event. So it's all his work. You'll be able to discover it in his books as well. But let's crack on and get into the presentation. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Where is it? Here it is. So Here we go. I'm just going to do that. Can you all see this? Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to see that. Yeah? You see that? Yeah. So, what I want to do is introduce you, if you haven't met him already, to Dr. Joe Dispenza. He is a #1 best-selling author. He is a public speaker. He speaks to audiences all around the world. I think it's got up to about something like 33 countries now. And he is really interested in his research work. And he uses models and tools based on neuroscience. And that's how he's developed a lot of his concepts that he teaches around the world. And so I want to let him say hello to you. So just take a few minutes to listen to Dr. Joe.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Joe Dispenza here. I wanted to take a moment and give you an overview of the Neurochange Solution Program. We use science as the contemporary model to demystify the process of personal transformation and sustainable change. There's a neuroscience and a biology of change that we use in this program. We have 2 models and 4 specific tools that teach people how to change, how to overcome the challenges in their life, in the workplace, and really learn how to overcome themselves. We've seen great transformations that have led to better performance, better teamwork, happier employees, healthier employees, and greater leadership. In other words, you'll learn how to think greater than you currently do in your day-to-day work. One of the models has to do with your personality and your personal reality. Your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And it has a direct effect on every single area of your life. We teach people to understand what it is to truly change and really how to change. We teach people how to use their brains to go from thinking to doing to being, so they can be more productive, they have more innovation, and they can be a better leader. We teach people to understand how to manage their stress, how to manage their emotional reactions, and what we call emotional intelligence. That leads to a healthier employee and a more productive employee. You'll understand the difference between living in survival or living in stress and living in creation or living with a creative mind and working with a creative team. We teach people to understand how to create their different states of being and different emotional states in order to manage better their own emotional reactions and self-regulate. There is a science, in fact, to creativity, to innovation, and to productivity. There's a science of beliefs and perceptions, and teaching people the anatomy of a belief so they can begin to understand that most beliefs are subconscious states of being derived from past experiences. And when they begin to change those beliefs, they begin to see change in every single area of their life. We instruct people about brainwaves and the science of brainwaves so they can go from a state of incoherence that's typically driven by the hormones of stress to greater levels of coherence that lead to more creativity, new ideas, greater effects in every single area of a person's work environment. What are the effects of that? Sustained change leads to greater results in every single area of a company and organization.
Just roll back up here. So what you'll notice is that, let me just.
Hi, everybody.
When Dr. Joe talks about knowledge as the precursor to experience, that's why it's important for us to learn something new. So when we said earlier, if you have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day and, 90% of those are the same, what we also need to be aware of as well is that by the age of 35, 95% of who we are is a program or a habit. So these thoughts that we've been having, these thoughts and feelings that we've been habit, and a habit is a recurring, often unconscious and automatic pattern of thoughts, behaviors and feelings that are acquired through frequent repetition. And that's when what happens is the body becomes the mind. because we've got into such unconscious habits of being that the mind and body are working as one, and it's bypassing our thinking a lot of the time. And so what we're teaching you is different models and tools of, this will be familiar to you, it's one of my favorite images actually. It's that 5% is usually what we're aware of our conscious thinking, but that 95% is under the surface. And oftentimes our body is doing something, excuse me, that is in an automatic state of being. And so when Dr. Joe talks about our personality, how we define it in this work is how we think, how we act, and how we feel. And we define that as our state of being. So what we look at is how an individual, if you want to change a company or a culture, you change an individual. And that's the work that we teach. So we look at what the old self is doing, and we dig into that old self and those thoughts and feelings that are creating the personal reality. And then we look at how we're thinking, acting, and feeling, and how we want to create the new self and a new personal reality. And so let me tell you how not to change. So you have the same thoughts, you learn nothing new. You know, you maybe listen to some podcasts and, you know, watch something on YouTube, but you don't actually think anything new. You don't actually want to learn anything new. You don't read any books, you don't read any articles, you don't listen to anybody's thoughts and opinions. You just have those same thoughts. And by definition, those same thoughts will lead to the same choices. You'll make those same choices every day, and those same choices, oftentimes unconscious, that you're not aware of, will create the same actions and the same behaviors. And those same actions and behaviors will give you the same experiences, and they lead to the same feelings. And those feelings influence the same thoughts, and so on. So that thinking and feeling loop over and over again, after say a cycle of 20 to 30 years of conditioning, there's a redundancy in that cycle of thinking where the body begins to memorize the emotions better than the conscious mind. And people who think and feel the same cycle over time have created this chemical continuity in their bodies that has become their minds. And so we teach the neuroscience aspect of this so that you can understand what happens to the brain waves and when we think the same thoughts, what happens when we have those thoughts, and what chemicals the brain makes that actually influence the body, because it's a biochemical function that happens as a real result of our thinking. And so how do you change your personal reality? Well, then you have some new thoughts, and those new thoughts, when you learn new information, lead to new choices. And those new choices that you choose consciously become new actions and behaviors. You have some new experiences. You think this is going pretty well because you have some new feelings, and you might want to have more of those new feelings. And those new feelings influence new thoughts, and so on and so forth. And when you change how you think, how you act, and how you feel, you consciously and willingly update or change your own personality. And when you change your personality, you change your personal reality. And so what Dr. Joe has said many times is every time we have a thought, we make a chemical. And if you've read any of his work, you can dig into the deeper knowledge of those chemicals and processes in the brain and body. And if we have good thoughts, we make chemicals that make us feel good. And if we have negative thoughts, we make chemicals that feel us exactly the way that we are thinking. So then, by definition, you should want to have some sort of control over those thoughts, or so you would think. And so this is the model that we teach. I've just run through it with you previously. And we use that as a way to help you to understand and navigate where you are and where you want to get to. And so I'd like you to listen to Dr. Joe again just for a few more minutes.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Joe Dispenza here. I'm so delighted to share some of the success and growth that we've seen in our Neuro Change Solution program that we've been teaching around the world. This program is a result of more than 25 years of research on how the brain works and the role that our thoughts, our habits, our behaviors, and emotions play in our relationship with ourselves and with others, especially in the workplace, within teams and organizations everywhere. There's such a growing interest in the neuroscience and biology of personal change and transformation, and even meditation has made its way into the workplace. We're offering 2 free webinars for those people that are ready to bring this work into their teams and companies. The two webinars are designed to offer a sampling of what our program does to respond to the needs of businesses today and to provide great insight on the meaning of true leadership. We'll discuss how this program fosters collaboration, innovation, creativity within a culture, and how to lead with emotional intelligence. As we review these concepts, we'll address the dimensions that impact not only performance and productivity, but engagement and working relationships. What people don't necessarily know is how our own beliefs and perceptions have a direct impact on how we communicate, how we provide feedback, and how we handle crisis and difficult situations and conversations. There's a science beyond how to use our brain and understand how it learns. In other words, how it goes from thinking to doing to being. We'll also talk about what it means to change and why change is neurologically and physiologically so difficult. To change then means to be greater than your body, to be greater than the conditions in your environment, and to be greater than time. This program will show you that change means we have to break old habits, the old ways of being that produce resistance because our brains and our bodies are wired and programmed from years on end from living in the past. We'll talk about the difference between living in stress, or what we call survival, and living in creation. Most people in the workplace live in a permanent state of urgency, which turns into emergency. When we live in emergency, we're living in stress, and that means living in survival. Stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of balance. And even though we as humans have the machinery to deal with stress, our bodies are not designed to live in stress 24/7, year after year. How do we know? Because we've measured it. As part of our research, we've measured thousands of brains in action around the globe. We now know that there's a formula that when people learn how to change their brainwave patterns, the chemistry within their brain and body changes. Their level of attention changes, their emotions change so that they're more creative, more productive, and open to new ways of thinking. I look forward to talking with you about how this program can help you get the results you need in your business. I hope to see you there.
So that was a little surprise for you because we will be sharing the two free webinars via Gerald. That's a surprise for you as well, if you want them. They were filmed last year in 2019. And the first one is about an hour long of Dr. Joe speaking. I think we had something like, there were thousands of people on that webinar. And it's not public. It's only shared through certain relationships and companies and individuals that feel like it's going to help them to make change in the world. And the second one is where I interviewed Dr. Joe and asked him some questions about his personal journey and asked him to talk a little bit more about the program. And so I will be sending those to Gerald, and then he can share them with this audience as and where he thinks it's appropriate. But as I say, they're not for public posting. So you've got more if you'd like to learn more from Dr. Joe. Oh. And so Dr. Joe would say it's not the circumstances of your life that are dictating your experience. It's the thoughts that you're having about those circumstances, and it's the emotional reactions to those circumstances that dictate your life. And that's him there with one of his books that's done like a lot of really great work in the world, and one of my favorites, which is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And so I'm going to pause there. What I am also going to say is I know that we mention the words, the word meditation. I tend to also change that to, or use it intermittently with mental rehearsal, because some people are more, they're more open to using the phrase mental rehearsal, but that's truly what we're doing. We're mentally rehearsing ahead of time how we want our life to be, and we're entraining our brain and body consciously so that we can then entrain it into new thoughts and new feelings that we do want that become automatic, but obviously that's going to take repetition. Other things that I want to share with you is a lot of what we teach is related to having more emotional intelligence, and for sure you need to understand about brainwaves in the brain, in specifically the brainwave pattern of high beta. When you're in a high beta brainwave pattern, you cannot change. So when you learn things like, you know, some basic neuroscience about that you cannot change in certain states or thinking systems, then that's going to really help you and anyone that learns this work to have a more empowering, creative approach to what you do want to create in your life, or how to overcome your body, overcome your environment, and overcome time, which are 3 key concepts that Dr. Joe teaches. And so it's been a pleasure to share that with you all today. And I would love to take any questions that you have. And I'm happy to talk a little bit about HeartMath, but I'll pause on that because we've partnered with HeartMath, the HeartMath Institute, and I'll talk more about that later. I just want to take some questions on what I've said already. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So if anybody would like to ask any questions, just put their hands up. We had one person who asked on the chat when you said, what would you like to do? And they just says, well, I'd like to learn some tools and techniques for change, but you covered that in great detail. Before, in case anybody's looking to form a question, it's quite, you mentioned Glasgow, so you worked in Glasgow, and it's, you mentioned your introduction and how you touched on Dr. Joe 2006. Well, here's ours. We done a course called the Silver Method, and during the course of that, they introduced various speakers, one being Dr. Joe, his TEDx, the other being Bruce Lipton. So various, Greg Braden was there as well. So they do lots of stuff around about that. And Jerry Diamond, you've just unmuted yourself. Were you looking to ask a question?
No.
Jerry, if you have, I'll just pause that. But what happened is, Lindsay, so based on that, we had no idea who is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And we've done a very basic search on his website. And I think what happened is that from Glasgow, you started receiving loads of emails asking who is Dr. Joe Dispenza, could you come to Glasgow, so on and so forth. And obviously we had no idea that he was an international renowned scientist. He spoke at conferences all over the world. He was an international best-selling author. He'd sold millions of books. He'd done these sell-out shows all over the world. And eventually you contacted Robert McLaren, and me and Robert had a Zoom conversation or a Skype conversation with you. And Robert said, look, we're desperate to get this guy, Joe Dispenza, up to Glasgow. And you said, well, that's great, he does these sell-out shows, that's fine. What type of venue? And Robert said, well, I think we could get the Travel Lodge in Glasgow, and we could definitely get around about 100 people.
I love Robert.
And you said, well, let me just tell you that Dr. Joe does these sell-out shows all over the world. There's 1,500 people go once a month for week-long retreats. And you wouldn't have seen it, but I sort of shimmied off out of the camera, and I was saying to Robert, see you, because we had no idea obviously who it was, but to your great credit, you treated it very professional. You gave us a huge amount of respect, and from that sprang up, you came to Scotland, Glasgow, to do what we've just witnessed there over 2 days, which is just incredible, phenomenal. So let me see, there's somebody put on the chat.
We do need to tell everyone that after that conversation, he did actually come to Edinburgh and he did come to Scotland.
Yeah, I created that.
And he did a progressive live, and it was at that time, it was his biggest progressive he'd done globally. It sold out, 2,000 people showed up in Edinburgh. It was, and I was lucky enough to be there, and it was an amazing, amazing event. Yeah.
It's amazing. Somebody's asked a question there, Lindsay, on the chat, and I would invite anybody, if they would like to ask an actual question, just to put your hands up or send a message and I will unmute you. But somebody's asked, when is Dr. Joe's live events going to be back on? There's a question.
Yeah, it's a moving piece at the minute. I mean, we all understand what's happening with the global pandemic, and different countries are opening back up at different rates. And the UK is behind the curve somewhat. We're a few weeks behind some of the bigger other countries, I should say, like Spain and Italy. And so at the moment, we haven't got any live confirmation of events, but I know that the team are working day and night to get an event. At the moment, what's on the calendar that's on the website that I can talk about, we have a week-long retreat in Cancun the first week in August. Now, whether that goes ahead will depend on what happens in the next few weeks, I guess. And then we've got another one in San Diego in August. And that one is likely to go ahead, but it's already sold out. I'm just going to be really honest. It's sold out. It never went live. It's the only time that ever happened, because we had a situation where we had an event go live and something didn't go right with the sign-up system, and a lot of people got diverted to a wait list when they shouldn't. And so we had thousands of people that had that situation happen. And what you might not know is Dr. Joe is a very kind and super generous man. He is generous with his time, his attention. He really cares about people. And I remember us sort of having, that moment where you go, wow, nobody's speaking, but we're all thinking, what are we going to do here with this challenge, right? This is a real life situation. And so he created San Diego out of that, and all of those people that had been diverted into that wait spot got first access to that event, which was not meant to happen. He created it in a couple of days out of nowhere. So that event, if it doesn't go ahead, we've got a few thousand people we've got to take care of as well. So after that, whatever's on the website under the events tab is what we've got coming at the moment. And so that's all I know for now. We would love for San Diego to happen. What I can say is that the progressive is available online, and you get to watch it, or you get it for 93 days. And so you could do a whole immersion weekend if you wanted to, and just watch that whole weekend as if you were in the room in Edinburgh or somewhere else. It's not Edinburgh that's recorded, but it's a live event. So you could do that for now.
It's very good, actually. I've done it over a number of weeks, and it's new information. It's not overly complex once you get a grasp of it, but the first time hearing it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of neuroscience, a lot of biology, quantum physics, tying it all into the neurology, the chemistry, the biology of change, but using energy. Phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I've watched that, I must say, many times, many times. And it's the same as the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. What I like about Dr. Joe, in comparison to other people with different systems and different models, it's easily accessible and it's very affordable. I mean, you can buy the book, which is basically the advanced retreat, Becoming Supernatural, for 10 quid or so. And I noticed that Audible's just done a deal, so they're giving you Evolve Your Brain, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and Becoming Supernatural for 1 credit, so 7 quid or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's complex, it's massively cutting edge neuroscience, as I say, chemistry, but phenomenal, really phenomenal. And I absolutely take the credit for Edinburgh, because I created it. I sent you some links for some venues, and then it popped up. And what I will say is, I'm also
we did look at Glasgow, but in the end, the Edinburgh Conference Centre went out. So
yeah, went there. But I'm creating again. So I'm creating an advanced retreat for Scotland for next year. So just put you on notice if you want to go back and say to them. There is a number of venues in Glasgow that would absolutely suit an advanced retreat. And with that, we'll take a question. So Jerry Diamond, who is a brilliant participant here, he works in very deprived community in a high school. He's a mindfulness teacher, teaches lots of tools, techniques and strategies to young people, who runs various programs round about meditation. He's really into Dr. Joe as well. So fire away, Jerry.
Thanks, Jed. Very nice to meet you. That first part of your program was absolutely brilliant. My question is, and I kind of know the answer to this, is I run a 12-week mindfulness program in my secondary school, along with CBT. And I heard you tapping into the metacognition, and we've been doing that a lot with our pupils in the schools regarding thinking about thinking and knowing about knowing. So I kind of know the answer to this, but from your professional point of view, how do you think, how important do you think these tools are to children through secondary school from 12 to 18-year-olds?
Well, you know, I wished I'd had these tools at that age, is what I'm going to say first of all. And in answer to your question, I think they're extremely important that we teach. I mean, when Dr. Joe has taught children, taught teenagers, they usually say, "What's all the fuss about? What are my parents? What are the adults making all of it? This is easy." We make it more complex because we're conditioned, because we've built those neural networks, because we've fired and wired those neural networks together, and we're having this thinking, acting and feeling happening unconsciously, whereas they're more in a state of more of a learning state. So I think it's critically important to teach children the work. We don't have a kids program yet, but I would love for that work to unfold more and be available to kids in the world.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. If you look at brain frequencies and the development as we move through life, when we're in predominantly slower brain frequencies, so we move childhood, infancy, delta, a lot of time in delta. And we also know through psychology, as you'll know, is that a lot of core beliefs are programmed into us in certainly 0 to 7. And a lot of values that we develop slightly older, maybe 12, 13 or so.
Yeah.
Time optimal learning periods, you know, lots of synaptic connections happening in there. There's lots of prunings happening at various times in our life. They're already at a slower brain frequency as well. It's excellent, as we know through Jerry's school there, and discussions with other professionals about rolling out programs of stress management even. But what I like about Dr. Joe's work is going beyond that. So we're getting all the benefits of relaxation, meditative techniques. So we're getting all the biological, chemical and neurological benefits from being in deep meditative states. But what I like to go further, to move it further, is use that period to actually create new beliefs, to create new memories, to create new realities, so that when you rise up out of that rested state where you've got all the benefits of passive meditation, but you turn it into a much more dynamic form where you're actually starting to really create who you would like to become, not who you've been conditioned in the past, and becoming much more aware of how unconscious we are of the programs, of the things that we've learned, and we go through this repetition pattern to become me. And if I'm looking to change me, one of the fastest ways of doing it is to get right into the operating centre, like you've just showed there, the iceberg. Move beyond that waterline, get right into the operating centre, and when we're in there, already getting all the benefits of passive meditation, becoming much more dynamic. And I really enjoy how we spend so much time unpacking it. You've no spoke about quantum physics and stuff like that, about the field, but there's a lot of stuff done in the advanced retreats, which is really about shortening that gap between the field and us. Amazing stuff there. So thanks for that question, Jerry. Any follow-up from that?
Can I just say as well for Jerry is that what's really important for teenagers or that age group is to help them to understand about the hormonal and biological changes that are happening in their body, because they're going through a physiological change that's not going to happen in the same way for the rest of their life as they go through teenager land into adulthood. And when they understand that this is chemical, that it's biological, that they need to overcome their body, overcome their environment, and overcome time, these are extra aspects that we need to teach them to be able to navigate the change from the current or old self to the new self. I got a question from Sharon Graham, wants to ask a question if she's still here. Is she still around?
Let me just check. Not yet. She's there. I'll just ask her to unmute. I've got another question from Natalie as well. We'll get in next. So I'm just asking you to unmute, Sharon, if you would like to do that. There you go.
I've just actually got to run off to work. I just really wanted to say thank you, because it's kind of opened my eyes to things. I'm working in a kind of a team where I'm finding it quite difficult because not everybody's on the same wavelength. I'm the only person in recovery within this team, and it's almost kind of like you can't be yourself. And I just kind of wondered if there was anything that you can do to make a change as far as that's concerned within your own self, so that you can be that person on your own rather than worrying about other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great question, because what you're alluding to is, how can you be greater than your body, greater than the environment, which is the people, the places and the things around you, and greater than time. And it's exactly what we're teaching and what you're doing when you go into the act of mental rehearsal or meditation at the beginning of every day or in an evening. Every meditation makes a difference. Everything that you're doing, you're creating, you're planning ahead, you're mentally rehearsing how you're going to be during your day, or during whatever shift you do, or any interaction. You can have little moments before you go into a meeting, or if you're going into a specific environment where you need to really mentally rehearse how you're going to be. Then you get to be the walking example of truth. And then you get to be the person where people go, wow, there's something about her. I want to be more like Sharon. I wonder what she's doing. And that's how cultures change, you know. But when we react to the environment or the person or the situation, even if it's inside of ourselves, we're making those chemicals. Even if we say nothing, we're having that internal chemical shift, and we feel it. It's visceral, right? And so when you're able to calm your mind and body down, then that's going to help you to navigate your day and stay in your most effective state of being. Then you have a better day, right? Then you're okay. Then you've overcome the situation, and then you just like, I have this little thing, Gerald knows, I do like a little self high five because I'm by myself a lot. And but you'd maybe do a little, you know, a little self high five inside, or pat yourself in the back, and you're encouraging yourself. You're being your own super fan. You're being your own navigator. And really, that's what you're being called to. There's something in you that's saying, how can I be more of me, irrespective of my environment? And I would encourage you to do the same and do the work, for sure.
Thank you.
That helped?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's interesting, one of the phrases that you used there, Lindsay, was you're being called to being yourself. And I remember in Brighton during the week-long retreat, I was saying, but I had an experience where I had a craving to meditate when I was in a toxic environment when I was 19. And I didn't know what to do. I was having a meltdown, and I just had this overwhelming desire to breathe and to meditate. And I remember lying on my bed, didn't know what to do, just doing different breathing techniques. And I shared that with you, and you said, well, your future self was calling you. Your today self is calling you. And it's almost like quantum physics, sort of in the quantum field. And that's almost like mental rehearsal is, having a very clear idea of the person that we decide to be. And there's a 30-day to genius manual on the course where you look at that and you say, right, well, who do you not want to be? So every day you get up, you start your day and you say, how do you feel? And you just journal that. Who do you not want to be? So I don't want to be anxious, I don't want to be argumentative. And it's really just becoming aware of the areas in my life today that are unconscious, right? So I'm going to become aware of this. And then who do you choose to be? This is who I choose to be. This is who I choose to feel. This is who I'm going to step into the world to be. And there's a short meditation that you do, getting really deep into a real deep meditative state, changing the chemistry, and then mentally rehearsing, becoming. So being that person. And I often share this as well, Lindsay, if you've got a medical condition, if you have a series of circumstances in your life, when you get into a deep meditative state, even if it's only 10 minutes a day, and in that 10 minutes of deep meditation, you become well, you're healthy, you're feeling fantastic, you're feeling incredible. See if you take that every single day for 2 days, twice a day, that's 20 minutes a day that you've got a boundless health in your mind. And if you transfer that over a week, over a month, over a year, you're basically creating a reality where over a year, for 2 weeks of the year, you have just experienced blissful health in your mind, in your body, and you're basically signaling the cells epigenetically to start creating the proteins to become the person. And that's why you use the words miraculous. And then you see it all the time. And seeing has got to be believing. It's amazing to be in the energy. And what I like about it as well, it's not like it's like Dr. Joe's putting himself up like a guru. People adore him. People are fascinated by him just with the energy and the work that he's doing. But he's quite clear and he's saying, this is no like follow me. This is do what I'm doing and become what you can become. Yeah. And which is the message.
It is, the message is become it, right? And so when you change who you are, just like I was saying to Sharon, you know, when you start to prepare and you start to practice who you want to be, eventually you do become it. And so, you know, when you realize as well, when you start to do your mental rehearsals, start to do your meditations, I always look for clues of when things, while I'm not looking for them, I'm allowing them to come to me. I'm like, oh, there's a change there, right? That means what I'm doing is making a difference. I've had something new's happen today. Now, it might not be everything, but something, little changes will occur in your external reality. And that's when you know you are epigenetically signaling new genes in new ways. You are changing your brain and body. And when you change how you think, how you act, and how you feel, you change your personality, and that changes your personal reality. And when it happens, it's like fabulous, right? But I also want to pick up on this, a similar question from Bella in Glasgow, who's saying, how can you change your thought process for a job interview when you're nervous? Well, it's the same thing, practice ahead of time. And I'm going to let you into a really big secret, especially from someone who's been the interviewer of interviewing lots of people for different jobs, right? I just want to let you into a secret. When you're being interviewed for a job, Bella, we really want you to be great. We really want you to do a great interview. So the people that are interviewing you are rooting for you before you even get there, and they don't even know who you are. So just bear that in mind first. Now, that's not neuroscience, that's just reality already. So when you can calm, what you're saying about being nervous, and you're saying, well, how can I be not nervous? Well, you're talking about calming your brain and body down beforehand. So you do want to be slowing your breathing down. You do want to be doing some mental rehearsal. And guess what? That's called meditation. So you might want to tune into a new potential of yourself. You might want to tune into the feelings of what thoughts you're going to think about that interview, what choices that you're going to make about those thoughts that you're having. And then you're going to have this whole new experience. You're going to have some new actions and behaviors. You're going to have a new experience. You're going to have some new feelings. And that is going to make a difference in your life. And that's why people love this work. Like Gerald is saying, Dr. Joe's not saying follow him. He's saying you can do this yourself. In fact, he's always looking how to evolve his work. He's always looking and talking about how can we do things better? How can we give more? How can we add more value? How can we do this even after a week-long retreat? He's like, okay, you know, how can we serve more and how can we do better? And so what he's done with NCS is we have just partnered with the HeartMath Institute. I promised I would mention that earlier, so I want to touch on it. And the HeartMath Institute are an amazing organisation that have got over 400 research studies that show that these changes in the brain and body make a difference. And not only that, you wear a little device where you can monitor your heart rate variability, and you can see instant changes from how you're thinking, how you're acting, and how you're feeling is recorded in real time. And I said to Gerald, if we've got time, I would show you maybe one of my slides of my new slide deck and talk you through it in a couple of minutes. But you know, what really interests me is they have, and we do too, is these on-the-go methods of breathing techniques that we teach you that you can use in the moment, on the go, before a job interview, when you're in the middle of a job interview with your eyes open, a technique you can do just to breathe, to compose yourself and to be your most highly effective self, to make sure you remember to answer the question, that you remember to convey the message that you want to convey, or whatever situation you find yourself in. So I wish you every luck with your job interview as well.
So before we get Natalie, and obviously I may forget, but I'll try not to, but we should have a conversation about how we can do NCS this close here in Glasgow in some medium very soon. So I've asked you to unmute yourself, Natalie. Let's shoot.
Thank you so much, Jed, for facilitating this. I have got 9 pages of notes because I couldn't stop writing, and thank you so much, Lindsay. I am the CEO of Cisco. We are a prison-based charity, and something that you said, Lindsay, really stuck out to me. You said, when we live in emergency, we live in stress. Now, my guys that I work with are in constant chaos, you know, their environment in prison. What kind of tips do you think that I could offer them to empower them? You know, Jed comes in and he does a lot of work with these guys twice a week, but what things can I offer them for them to do daily to live in such a chaotic environment?
Well, it's a great question because, you know, whether you're in a prison is a chaotic environment, right? And it's going to trigger those neural networks, those hardwired neural networks and habits and behaviors. And so they have to mentally rehearse how they want to be. They have to start their day with a decision. And that first decision has to be, if I want to have a new reality today, I have to change my personality. And they have to practice that new personality. And when you teach them your personality is how you think, how you act, and how you feel, and they get to really understand that they have to understand the new information that you're giving them first, because information leads to transformation, right? When they really start to get those aha moments from information about, right, so what you're saying is, Natalie, if I think something new, if I learn something new, and if I think a new way, and if I practice being someone else, I can actually eventually be someone else and not have that old reaction and that old, you know, that old experience. And you're like, yeah, absolutely. Then you're probably going to get more people invested. They might not believe you at first. So you might have to share with them some evidence or examples or testimonials of people that have done this work and got results. And there are plenty of those on Dr. Joe's website in the testimonial section. And so what I'm really interested in is them understanding that they have to have new thoughts, right? They've just got to start thinking differently, because it's those repetitive thoughts that they're having over and over again that are hardwired. It's like they're on an autopilot and they have to be the breaker switch, you know, and that breaker switch is the new thought, and it's the new choice. And then it's the new actions and behaviors that come from that. And at first, when you do that, you have to consciously do it. It's like riding a bike, you know, to use that old metaphor. When you decide to ride a bike, you fall off a few times, quite a few times. You might even hurt yourself, right? But you eventually you get the hang of it, and then over time, when you practice and practice, you become more efficient at it and more proficient, and then you can do it without thinking. Same with driving a car, right? Eventually, you're driving down the motorway at 70 miles an hour with one white dotted line between you and this next big hunk of metal, and it's like, and you're really relaxed. So when people say, well, I can't relax, you go, well, you know, there's times you do relax. So let's think about the times that you are able to breathe and relax. And I would teach them some simple breathing techniques to slow down their brain and body. Because when you slow down your brain and your body, you move out of high beta, which is why you can't change when you're in high beta. That's where you go when you're in stress. That's the brainwave pattern. So when you use your breathing and you change your thinking, you slow those brainwave patterns down to low beta and alpha. And that's when you get into the sweet spot of creation. And when you teach them that that's an empowering place to live, when they start to get some evidence or start to share with each other some evidence of change, then they'll start to go, oh, well, I want to be more like that, you know? And I would look for examples of people who have been in prison and done the same. You know, and there's plenty of them out there. In fact, I just posted one on my Facebook page, and I don't post a lot on Facebook. I go on there to keep in touch with my friends globally when I travel. And I posted one just a couple of weeks ago about this guy who was incarcerated for like over 30 years for a crime he didn't commit, and DNA testing got him out. I mean, just like incredible. So I would look for extreme examples like that and go, if he can do that, do you think he was having to have some new thoughts every day? Do you think he had to overcome his body? Do you think he would have to overcome his body wanting to be enraged? Do you think he'd have to overcome time, Absolutely. Do you think he'd have to overcome his environment? Absolutely, because every day he opened his eyes, he was presented with thoughts, right? He was presented with a choice of how to be. And he was presented with, how long is this going to actually go on? So he was totally in the unknown. And so I would look for inspirational examples to share with them that proves that there's some commonality between them and the other person that makes them think the thought of, well, if they can do it, I can do that. That's all you need, is that tipping point. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps massively. Thank you so much. And we have great examples. We have Jed is probably one of our best examples.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Use examples that are global as well. Use local, use this country, use different countries, use global examples. Because when you take it outside of Glasgow and outside of Edinburgh and outside of the UK, there's something that happens in the brain that when you globalize it, they go, oh. And it's not that the examples you're sharing aren't profound and amazing. It's that the repetition of the examples makes them go, wow, there's a lot of people doing that stuff. Maybe I should give that a go. Make sense?
Thank you.
Lindsay, just a quick question. So we went into lockdown. There was meant to be an advanced retreat in Spain. Quite quickly, you, Dr. Joan, you and the full team mobilised and put on a live week-long retreat, which we, because we're advanced students, got invited for free. So FREE, not free. So, which was just incredible. Are you looking to take that material and package that up into an online retreat?
He's looking at a few things right now, and he's really excited about some projects he's working on. I'm not sure I'm able to talk about them just at this moment in time, but I would definitely say as soon as I hear anything and I'm allowed to share it, I'll tell you, and you can share it with the community. I do know that what we can share with your group of people here today is he did share some free, very powerful meditations, and I would actively encourage you to share them with this group of people that are here today, because he designed them to be free. He designed them to be passed on during this time. He designed them so that we could tune into a potential and an emotion that's good for ourselves individually and for the people around us and the planet.
Is this Goal of 20?
Hashtag Goal of 20, yeah.
Hashtag GOLOVE 20, which is just...
No, there's no E in it. It's GOLOVE 20, yeah. Goal of 20.
Goal of 20, yeah, okay.
Well, I sent you that, and it's an experience. It's an experience, not just a meditation. So make sure that you follow the instructions that I shared with you, and let's share that with this group of people here in a way that it's meant to be shared, right? Because
it's lovely. It was, I'll put a caveat on that. I was driving when I was listening to the feedback and nearly crashed my car. It was lovely.
Oh no! You need to tell them it was a voice message on WhatsApp, right? I'd send you a voice message on WhatsApp, and of course, sorry about that. I didn't know you were driving when you listened to it.
I'll start that today. I've got some people in mind. We'll get that going. It's on this chat just now. So is there anybody got any more questions? Let me see. Somebody's put on the chat there. It's just Bella saying thank you. So would you like to touch on the HeartMath stuff going?
Yeah. You know, I'm super excited about this. I mean, I just have moments where I feel like I need to peel myself off the ceiling, and I know I look really calm, but I'm not. I'm like just so excited because HeartMath system is like a research-based methodology. They've got over 400 studies of the work that they've done, and they teach on-the-go tools that you can feel a difference in your brain and body immediately, similar to Dr. Joe's work, and where you can really have a moment in time with yourself where you can reset your baseline. So what does that mean? They talk about baseline in the context of what we would call a habit or a program, but there's a deeper scientific, there's a lot of scientific research around HeartMath. So what we've done is we've taken their 30 years of research. We've got Dr. Joe's 25 years of his research, and we've put them hand in hand with NCS. Now, HeartMath have never done this with any company globally. So I've been privileged to work with Dr. Roland McCready, who heads up their whole research function. And the team there, Tricia Hoffman and Heather Heaths, have been amazing. And we literally, just ahead of lockdown, we built together a program outline for the NCS consultants to learn this work. And so I've not had a quiet lockdown. I've had 10 weeks of working day and night to get these projects finished as well. Thankfully for technology, I've been able to do that. And now what we do is when we teach, so for example, the course that you did, Gerald, on NCS, now what I can do is I can drop in HeartMath teachings appropriately during that program. So for example, when we teach the refractory period, which is how, you know, when you get into an emotional reaction and you write that email you shouldn't have written, or you say that thing you shouldn't have said. And so like teaching the refractory period is how you shorten that reaction, how you shorten that state of being in the moment. And so we teach a model of how to do that so that you're more empowered. And what HeartMath does is we've got some extra tools that we can add to that, which is how you shore up your emotional intelligence, right? And they've got some really great tools and techniques that we're teaching that are very impactful, and you can do in 30 seconds, or you can make them last a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And they've measured some really great different environments, like with the military, with the police department, with schools. And so I'm excited about having that added into what we teach.
Excellent. What HeartMath do just now, ran a very short course called HeartMath Experience, which they were selling when we went into the global pandemic. They have released that for free. So if you go to HeartMath's website, look for HeartMath Experience, and on it, all the professors and doctors that you spoke about, the researchers there, the doctors, and heart coherence, heart lock-in, attitude breathing. They've got 5 different techniques there that are hugely powerful, very, very powerful. I've been doing it while we've been chatting, predominantly before we pressed record. You can just do it eyes open. They actually encourage to do it, but it's very nice when Dr. Joe spends that 10 minutes before we go into deep meditation, before we go to space, where we just start changing the chemistry in our body through the heart coherence breathing. I was fortunate enough at Brighton where I got to put the HeartMath monitor on for a couple of days, 24 hours, while I was doing the meditations to check the heart and brain coherence, but for some reason it didn't work, unfortunately. So they didn't get the reading from it. So that's it. So listen, is there any more questions? So people put on the chat, just some observations there. So Lindsay, what's the plan for you then? So what happens when the pandemic finishes? What's your plans?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, the plan for me is that I've been running this business throughout the pandemic, so nothing's really changed. I'm working on 9 different projects at the moment that I'm moving through, so that will carry on when the easing continues. And then if I'm invited to support Dr. Joe at one of his events, then of course I'll be going to do that, and when they emerge. But I'd love to share a one slide if anyone's interested in HeartMath, and some of because I'll definitely be teaching HeartMath, I'll be teaching NCS. I've got some other plans that I can't talk about online at the minute that I'm really excited about, that I was just talking with Dr. Joe yesterday about, and he's being super and incredibly supportive with all of the thoughts and ideas I've got about this work in the world. So do you want to have a look at a quick slide from HeartMath that I can share with you? Okay, so if I share my screen, if I choose this one, take a look at this, right? So I'm going to go down to slide 41. And so that you're aware as well, what I'm also planning on doing with myself and the team is if people are really interested in HeartMath, then what we will do is we would tag an extra day onto the end of NCS, and we would teach you everything that we've got from this whole content from HeartMath. They've given us permission to do that, which I just think is incredibly generous. So what you're seeing here, just make this full screen. HeartMath took 6 police departments in the US, and I'll explain this graph to you in a moment, and they put them in certain conditions where there were high-speed car chases, there were people jumping out of cars with machine guns, and there were domestic violence scenarios where a police officer would have to go typically and attend an incident and would be met with violence or some sort of incident in a family situation, or particularly between adults in that kind of scenario. And what they did was they didn't teach them any of the tools, they didn't teach them any of the techniques, and then what they did was they measured their heart rate variability, which can measure, it's a way of measuring how high the heart rate is, or the space between the heart rate, which is the variability between heartbeats. And you can see on the left-hand side here, it says heart rates beat per minute, and it ranges from 60, the scale's up to 250. And you can see at the beginning of this encounter, the police officer is around 70 beats per minute. And then this is an example of a measured heart rate variability over about 25 minutes. So you'll see it's pretty steady heart rate variability. It's got the device on. Now, prior to being taught any of these techniques, to get back into that heart rate of average of 70 beats per minute, it would take the officers an hour and 20 minutes to get back into that steady state. And some of them never got back into it. They were still in a very high heart rate variability. So stress, and the body was still going through those chemical processes, right? Which is not good for the brain and the body. Trying to keep this as simple as possible for you all. And so what they then did was they taught them the techniques and let them practice them for 30 days, right? And so this particular police officer was put in a scenario, it wasn't real, but you'll see on the red line there, it says he encounters an angry man, and see how the heart rate goes right up to its highest. Like there was 100, like you can see it's just spiked right up to 170, right? In that scenario, that top of the graph. And then you'll notice that it starts to come down as he's practicing these tools and techniques, but then there's a point in time at about 11:53 where he remembers to do the shift and reset tool, which has within it a heart lock-in technique. And so you're able to do it with your eyes open in the moment, and you can see that in literally less than a minute, he drops not only back down to 70 beats per minute, you can see that it's consistent. So that for me is what I love about HeartMath, is that they've measured this and they've got literally hundreds of examples like this in different scenarios. So what we're teaching you here and what we're sharing with you is that because of technology, we've got a way to measure the body to show that what we are doing is making a difference. So it's really impactful when someone's learning this work. They're like, oh God, that's what actually happens. Wow, right, yeah, I think I'd like to do some of that for myself. Now, you can feel the change when you do it, but this is helping people to see the change. Make sense?
Yep.
I just think that's a fabulous one slide, don't you?
Yeah, and it's very simple technique as well. I like it because you can do it eyes open, you can do it at traffic lights, you can do it at your desk. But with some of the questions there before a job interview, you can really just get into a process where activate neurological networks, or almost beyond an NLP anchor, but similar process where now I just need to breathe into my heart and I can just feel a shift, and it's just a pause. There is a different state here, but not just that. When you dig into the science behind it all, how the heart has afferent pathways that go into the brain that greatly influence the limbic system, which is massively active when we're under chronic stress or distress. It changes the chemistry in my body. We can activate networks associated with coherence, so they release the chemistry that comes into our body, so we start feeling differently, and then ultimately act much better, much more coherently. So fantastic, Lindsay, really great.
So somebody's asking on the chat, what's NCS? It's Neuro Change Solutions. I'm just abbreviating that because it's a bit of a mouthful. And then someone else is saying, Rachel is saying, can that be demonstrated by Jed? I'm really happy to do a quick heart lock-in technique if people want to hear it for 30 seconds, yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody up for it? Okay.
Let's do it.
So take a moment and focus your attention in the area of your heart. Imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. And now activate and sustain a regenerative feeling, such as appreciation, care, or compassion. And radiate that renewing feeling to yourself and to others. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and notice what you're experiencing. Does anybody like to comment on what they're experiencing?
I think what happens, Lindsay, with this new update on Zoom, people don't have the ability to unmute themselves. So what happens is they need to put their hand up, and then I need to invite them to unmute themselves. So there's somebody's just wrote gratitude, you can see that.
Amy, yeah.
You know, it says an elevated emotion.
It's
my own experience with the HeartMath tools was repetition. You know, really repetition. The first few times I done it, didn't really experience any real sensations. But when it's set, it's set. So it's like there's no longer a 10-minute process. It's just a quick process. I tend to do it before I go into the field, before I go into deep meditation, before I go create. I tend to just get myself in a 5 or 6 minute period where I just really sit and really shift chemistry, and I just feel like waves vibrating.
And look at what's happening on the chat, right? Gratitude, warmth, calmness within chaos, calmness again, people, calmness, peace, complete silence and calm, yes, calmness. So look at the theme here, right? We're all in different bodies, we're all different personalities, we're all in different places, and yet we take seconds to tune in and focus on the area of the heart and imagine that breath. And we're having similar feelings that are empowering feelings that actually change our biochemistry. So when we get to experience that, we start to notice, wow, I think I'd like a little bit more peace in my life. I mean, you've got to have been one of those people who at one point in the past have gone, dear God, give me some strength or give me some peace, you know. Well, actually, you can evoke it in the moment. And what I love about I just love about the HeartMath work is the impact that it has over time, the changes it makes to the brain and the body. And, you know, like Dr. Joe's got thousands of scans. And his work is the changes that we're measuring are incredible. So this is a physiological shift that shows up in your own body and allows you to feel so empowered about who you want to be in your day and in your life, right?
What's so great about that technique is it's not just because of your lovely, luscious tones. People can actually go away and practice that themselves. And as you said, there's 400 peer-reviewed articles published in scientific journals, which basically means that other scientists are reviewing these journals and they would just tear it to pieces. That's what science is. It just pulls models apart so that they test it to see, is this real? Absolutely, it's too comprehensive, but you can read some information, you can get some knowledge, but ultimately it's the experience of it that leads to a wisdom that I have the opportunity, I have the capability, the own resources to change how I feel. And ultimately, if I change how I feel, I can think much better, I can act much better, and I can perform much better. Really simple, powerful tools. So, Lindsay, it's come to that time where we're really just going to look to wrap it up. I would absolutely, again, re-emphasise gratitude for taking the time to come on. You know that I told you off camera that we're really just using these as a means to raise profiles, particularly the charity, the work that we're doing in prisons. I spoke to you on messages and stuff like that. We are absolutely, I'm sure Natalie sent a message that you'd love to see you coming up to the prisons. If you are ever in Scotland, it's now opportunities in Edinburgh Monday and Wednesday, in Glasgow Tuesday, Thursday, or in Deepmish, Lanarkshire on a Tuesday as well, where we can come in. We would love to be able to, in some way, run the full workshop, if that's possible. But certainly even just to come in with no obligation to teach, but just to watch, just to observe. There's lots of tremendous work. And I spoke to you about this off as well, where as a society, particularly in the UK, but worldwide as well, lots of people, tremendous social consciences, look about at some of the hardships and the challenges that people experience, and really would like to support people to just to help them, you know, just to show a bit of humanity and help people. And often in Glasgow we have a big drive round about homelessness, which is just great. I mean, individuals grouping together, church groups, organisations, more formal charities, and really providing basic essential survival kits, food kitchens, emotional support, just sitting with people and talking to them, cuddling them, teaching, showing them that humanity. But often I feel that a lot of the people have came through the prison environment, not them all, but many of them have been in Berlin, for instance, and we've got a great opportunity where if we can get people in the recovery cafe and get them stabilised, you know, offer them support and about substances, mental health, teaching them stress management techniques, a real opportunity there where rather than us having to do something for somebody, we've got the opportunity to give them information so that they no longer need me or you to provide it, because they've got all the resources that they need quite clearly to go and create a life themselves. And that's where these recovery cafes. So I would like to thank everybody as well who used the donation and put in a small amount of money. It's really, really useful. We'll go right to the front line. We've got a few £100 there. Thanks for coming on and helping us to achieve that as well, Lindsay. And I'll just put it back to you for some closing comments or observations.
Well, you know, I will help you wherever I can. We've got a team in the UK and globally, and so if I can't, there'll be someone that we can, I mean, I'd love to come to Glasgow and to Scotland because it's a beautiful place and I loved living there. But for me, I would love you all to remember who you really are and that you can become it.
Yeah, what ending? What's the way?
Right?